So today I'm delighted to say that I'm in conversation with Debs Pharoah Pink, author of A Squirrel's Tale. Now, Debs is passionate about wildlife and nature, and having joined an online self-isolating bird club started by Chris Packham, of all people, in March 2020, she found a very welcome platform for her nature poems. So she's written poetry all her life, into her early teens and beyond, and she's tried now, she says, her hand at storytelling, and it's been such a lovely success. She spent many years as a primary school teaching assistant, supporting children with dyslexia and dyscalculia. So the ideas just keep coming for her. So A Squirrel's Tale is her debut book, and hopefully the beginning of an exciting new project and a new career, perhaps. She draws as well, the wonderful pictures. She's an amateur photographer. She's got loads of passions. She lives in Dorset with her husband and Dexter the dog. So without further ado, thank you for joining me today, Debs.
Hi Sue.
It's great to have you here. So tell us all about your journey. I've done a brief resume of it, but how did it all begin?
It started in 2013. So
Right.
I was, like you said, I was working in primary school at the time as a teaching assistant, and I was off school for a couple of weeks. I was recovering from an op, and just to really alleviate the boredom, like I always do, I watched the sort of what's going on in the garden, the wildlife, and this idea came to me about writing a story about what I see outside, and that's kind of how A Squirrel's Tale was born, really. So I jotted everything down on a notebook and then revisited it sort of like a few weeks later, and the ideas just kept rolling. And I'd never done anything like that before, which was like, I just found it was, the story just wrote itself, really, which was brilliant. And I introduced sort of like the wildlife and sort of like the domestic, my pets, and I just really enjoyed writing it. And so I just sort of like got it all typed up, and then I thought, right, okay, what do I do with it now? And I thought I'd really like to do something with it, but it was very difficult at the beginning, trying to find where to go with a story. I tried sort of like a few sort of like publishers, didn't really get anywhere, so I kind of forgot all about it, shelved it, and then sort of like in 2020, I met all these lovely people on Self-Isolating Bird Club, and with it came a lot of writers and people who'd written books. There were people on there that knew about the publishing business, and that's how it all started, really, and I haven't looked back since. So
a good news story out of a difficult situation, really.
Definitely.
And when destiny kicks in, it kicks in, because now you have this wonderful book, A Squirrel's Tale. Tell the people watching, what's it about?
Right. Well, it's set in a garden, a lovely overgrown garden, and my main characters are Nutty the squirrel and Grumpy Ginger Tomcat. And they get up to all sorts of mishaps, adventures, lots of chases, rescues, all sorts of fun things that you wouldn't expect to see in a garden. But I just thought it would be a really fun book for children to read, something a little bit different, and sort of like it's set in autumn, so I've linked in the seasons, so, and sort of like it just making sort of like the garden come to life, really, sort of like on paper. So I really enjoyed writing it, and sort of like the characters, I've become very, very fond of both my characters.
Like your babies.
They are, really. I feel like I'm their agent. but sort of like sort of like Ginger Tom. He's the grumpiest, meanest cat out. Which, you know, cats can be a little bit funny sometimes.
Yeah.
And I love ginger cats as well. So you know, that he had to be a ginger cat. But all the antics of, you know, the rescues, it made me laugh while I was writing it. So I thought, well, if I'm
Well,
laughing,
that's a good sign.
hopefully a parent that's reading it will be laughing as well. Because sometimes when you're reading a story, a bedtime story, it can be quite boring. You know, you think, oh, some of them, they're not that inspirational for the parent to read. They might be great for a child,
Yes.
but for a
Yeah.
parent. So I was thinking of both, really. So
That's what Disney
yeah.
does, really. You go to a Disney film, and actually, the adult gets some of the humour that the child doesn't. All in good
Oh,
humour, and
absolutely.
not you know, not laughing at anybody, but that they get the humour. So, who is the book aimed at? What age? I mean, you said parents can read it, but then as they get a bit older, kids can read it for themselves, I guess. Who did you
Yes.
have in mind?
So I thought it would make a really lovely bedtime story for younger children. So we've sort of like decided on 4 would probably be a really good age, because they could understand the story
Yes.
more than a younger child. And you know, you could read just a page a night. It's not a very big book, but it's just a perfect, I think you
Yeah.
could read it to a child in a week, and they would retain the story.
Yeah.
But then for the older children, there's some quite challenging words in there. And I love description. So, you know, I'm all about getting children to use words that are a little bit better than nice and lovely.
Yes. Yes.
So
Yes.
that
That's the TA in you.
it is, and it all that came out in the book. So I was thinking, what can I do? Yeah, so we've gone, you know, sort of like, so for the younger children, it's sort of like 4, and then I
Yeah.
really wrote it with 8, 9-year-olds, sort of like year 3 and 4 in mind.
Yes. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's sort of like it's sort of like for 4 to 8, 9.
Yeah.
You know, and that's where we've gone for, and that's how I saw
Yes.
it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's like most books. You can read it to younger children and they understand it. You can chat about it, or children a bit older can get it because they can read it for
Yeah,
themselves. What's
absolutely.
the message that you'd like perhaps parents to get from it, or the children from the reading the
Yeah.
story? Is there a message underneath it a little bit?
So so I never really thought about it, but I suppose my message really is to get children to really notice what's in the garden. You
Yes.
know, parents, when they're outside doing things, you know, potting plants, they can have a look together and see if they notice sort of like what birds are out in the garden, if are there any
Yeah.
squirrels in the trees, or when they go
Yes.
to the
Yeah.
park.
Yeah.
You know, any outdoor space, just to get them to really have a good look and see
Yes.
what's out there.
And if
I
you
think
do more of them, with the seasons, it can roll along like that too, can't it?
exactly. And I think there's another, probably a message that I didn't probably realise is in there.
Yeah.
When you read the story, there's a lot of plans that go wrong. So maybe have a good think before you do things.
Or
So
maybe
that
it's
might
okay
be,
to make mistakes.
yes, it's okay to make mistakes, try and learn from them.
That's it.
Unfortunately, I don't think Nutty ever will. But yeah,
But it's
yeah, that's
lovely. I
pretty
mean, not all stories have to have a big, important message, but it's
no,
kind of nice underneath them sometimes to think about
yeah,
that. And, you know,
yeah,
parents looking at this go, oh, that's lovely. Perhaps we can do a bit of that in the garden now after we've read the
yeah.
story. Tell us about those lovely illustrations.
Wow, I was so lucky, so fortunate to be able to do the illustrations myself,
Yes.
because I'm not a
Yes.
professional artist, but
No.
I do love dabbling with pen and ink, fine line pens. Absolute my favorite medium, and I've
Yeah.
always done that kind of thing. And then I think when I originally sort of like approached another publisher, sort of I did say, you know, I would really like to do some illustrations. So I had 6 that I'd done 6 A4 already, and
Yeah.
that changed, and I ended up, luckily, thank goodness, with Little Steps. And I learned so much through Rachel, who was my book designer, and she sort of like taught me all the things, all the different styles of illustrations that you do, not just sort of like one A4 page, but like the smaller ones, which I didn't know anything about. So it was a really good learning thing for me. So I really, really enjoyed it. And, you know, they're not perfect. They're not sort of like absolutely accurate of a squirrel or a cat, but it's my own kind of like quirky style, really.
I think that's what makes it endearing, because it's so personal as well, isn't it? And people reading it, and now after listening to you will go, oh gosh, you know, it makes it so much more personal.
Well, I think the book's quite quirky, and my style of illustrations is quite quirky, and it brings the story to life, because I think it's quite an old-fashioned tale, really, and sort of like using colour probably wouldn't have worked in the book, because that's quite you know, it would look too modern, and that wasn't really the feel that I was going for.
After,
if you know what I mean. So
it's interesting to know that as well, isn't it? Behind the scenes, all the decisions that get made around book that parents don't always think about. So do you do readings in schools and libraries and fetes and fairs and things like that?
I do. I've been very lucky, because I was a TA for many years. Have lots of contacts with teachers who've moved on to different schools. My original school where I worked, they were my very, very first. I did my book launch there, which was amazing.
Lovely. Oh, that's lovely.
I really loved it. I read to sort of like all the year groups, and then another teacher who become a head in a different school approached me and asked me to come there. And then this year it's gone crazy, really. Like, I've got 3 World Book Day has turned into World Book Week for me. I've done you know, I'm sort of like approaching, you know, like I've done things at the beavers and squirrels.
Oh, good idea. Oh, well, you'd have to do the squirrels.
Yeah, that was so lovely. They were very, very young children. They were, I think they were sort of like 4 to 6, and there was 8 of them, and they were so adorable. And they took the whole story in, and they knew quite a lot about wildlife, which I was so impressed with. So that made me feel like, yes, I've got on the right track.
Oh, absolutely. How lovely.
I've been very fortunate, actually. I've got lots of contacts. I've been to a lovely place near us called Moores Valley, which is a big country park. And the rangers, they do lots of wildlife activities, and they've got a den. And I've been able to go and do a book reading in there, and they've asked me to go back in April. So so it's all really, really good.
Oh, that's so lovely. So listen, where can people find you, find the book across your social media, and where can they go and get your lovely book? And it's all, you know, it's in the Sue Atkins Book Club, of course, but where else can they find you?
They can find me on, I'm just going to have a look at my notes. So I am on, it's A Squirrel's Tale author page, Debs Pharoah Pink on Facebook. I'm on Little Steps, the publisher's website, their book page, and I'm in the Guardian bookshop. That was amazing. That was completely by accident. But I'm on there. Waterstones online, Amazon online. Might sort of like email me. Can I give my email?
If you want to, of course.
Sort of like dcpharoahpink@gmail.com. So you send me a message. So and I've got my book into some independent bookshops as well, which is really good, and a couple of gift shops. So it's I'm out there.
You're out there on the socials, and you're out there telling people. So it's lovely. It's been lovely to chat with you, to hear all about how it came about, where you're going with it. It's a delightful story. So thank you for giving me your time today.
Thank you.